She walked in with a wig and a second-hand suit, just a quiet woman looking for work. By the end of the week, her employees realized she owned the entire company. Clarissa Boone had heard rumors before. Gossip was part of the job when you ran a chain of 16 auto dealerships across 4 states. Someone was always upset about commissions, or a manager who played favorites, or the usual grumbling about hours. But this was different. This time, the whispers had weight. It started with a call from an old friend, someone who used to manage one of her showrooms in New Mexico before retiring. "You might want to check in on Tulsa," he said. "Not through HR. Go yourself. Eyes on the ground." Tulsa wasn't her biggest store, but it had the fastest growth and the most turnover. So Clarissa did something no one expected. She canceled her meetings, pushed back a planned investor dinner, and told her executive assistant she'd be unreachable for a week. "Where are you going?" her assistant, Aisha, asked. "Shopping for a new perspective," Clarissa said with a small smile. What she didn't say was that she'd already picked out a wig, ash brown with gray streaks, slightly frizzy, and a thrifted pantsuit 2 sizes too large. She would apply minimal makeup, wear glasses with a scratched lens, and carry a clipboard with a resume she'd typed up herself. No LinkedIn, no digital trail. The fake name on the resume? Carla Benson, age 49. Previous work, customer service at a call center, 3 years unemployed. She would come off as awkward, forgettable, not threatening, just enough to be ignored. The plan was simple. Walk in, ask to speak to the hiring manager, say she was interested in learning sales. Play dumb, observe, record, and leave after 5 days. But things didn't go quite like she imagined. When she arrived that Monday morning, just before 9 a.m., the dealership lot was already full of cars. New Dodge Rams lined up next to used Civics. A row of SUVs with big red tags in the windows read "Blowout" in crooked black marker. Clarissa stood in the lobby for 4 minutes before anyone spoke to her. "Can I help you?" A tall guy with a too-tight polo finally asked, barely looking up from his phone. I was wondering if someone's hiring. For sales," she said, voice shaky on purpose. He squinted at her. "Do you have any experience?" "No, but I'm good with people." He laughed and shouted over his shoulder, "Yo, Trevor! Another fresh one!" Trevor was a man in his early 30s, with slicked back hair and a badge that read Team Leader. He looked Clarissa up and down, smirked, and motioned for her to follow him. They walked past a row of desks, each one with a laptop and branded coffee mug. Some employees looked up. One woman gave her a nod. A young man, maybe 20, offered a quick smile. Trevor dropped a cheap packet of training material in front of her. "Read that. Sit here. Don't bother anyone. If you don't quit in 3 days, I'll get you shadowing someone." Clarissa nodded. "Thank you." But he was already walking away. An hour later, she heard the whispers. 2 men, one of them the same guy who greeted her, stood by the coffee machine talking low, but not low enough. "She looks like she's someone's aunt who got lost in here," one said. "Probably here for the free coffee," the other joked. $50 says she doesn't make it to Friday." They both laughed. Clarissa stayed quiet, but she heard every word. But something else in the room caught her attention. A quiet exchange between 2 employees that didn't match the rest of the noise. Clarissa sat at the far end of the showroom, flipping through the training packet like someone actually trying to absorb every word. In reality, she was watching everything. Body language, conversations, habits. Her desk didn't have a computer or even a phone. Just a chair with one uneven leg, a broken drawer, and a pen that barely worked. Every few minutes, a salesperson passed by without a glance. Some whispered, a few stared. No one offered help. It was like being invisible, but not in the good way. She wasn't hiding. They just didn't care. Mid-morning, Trevor walked by again. "You still here?" he asked, surprised. Clarissa smiled faintly. "Yeah, still reading," he shrugged. "Suit yourself. Just don't get in the way." The first customer of the day, a retired couple, walked in looking for a truck. Clarissa watched 2 salesmen rush to greet them, nearly bumping into each other. The older man chuckled. The woman looked overwhelmed. Within 10 minutes, they were being pitched on something 20 grand over their budget. Clarissa jotted a note. She spotted a quiet kid, maybe early 20s, sitting 3 desks down. Nervous energy clung to him like a second skin. His hands fidgeted. He wasn't talking to anyone. Every time a manager walked past, he straightened his posture like he was bracing for impact. Clarissa decided to ask. "Hi," she said, approaching him during a lull. "I'm Carla. It's my first day." He looked startled, then smiled. "Oh, hey. I'm Curtis. Welcome." She sat on the edge of his desk. "You been here long?" "3 weeks," he said. "Feels like longer." He spoke with a slight stutter, barely noticeable, but enough that you could tell he was trying to control it. Clarissa could also tell he was smart, careful, observant. "You like it here?" she asked. He paused, trying to. Curtis glanced toward the glass office near the back. A guy in a blue dress shirt sat inside on his phone, feet up, laughing at something. That was the general manager. From what Clarissa had gathered, nameplate read, Chad Landry. "Trevor said I can shadow someone eventually," she said. Curtis nodded. "Just act confident. Don't ask too many questions. If you're lucky, they'll let you stay." "You're still here." He chuckled nervously. "Barely." Before she could ask more, a loud voice broke the moment. "Curtis!" Trevor barked from across the room. "Stop wasting time!" Curtis jumped. "Gotta go. Nice meeting you." Clarissa turned back to her desk, her thoughts racing. These weren't just isolated moments. They were patterns. By lunchtime, she'd seen enough to know something was off. The staff wasn't just careless. They were fractured, competitive to the point of sabotage. New hires like Curtis were on their own. Veterans clung to their rank like it was armor. No one looked out for anyone. At noon, Clarissa sat alone in the break room eating a microwaved frozen meal. A group of employees joked loudly in the corner, their laughter echoing off the beige walls. She caught fragments of conversation. "Did you see the shoes that new chick's wearing? Man, she looks like she just rolled out of a bus stop. Bet she still writes checks at the grocery store." More laughter. She didn't say a word. But the break room door opened, and someone stepped inside with a gentle knock. It was the young receptionist, Maribel. She walked over and sat beside Clarissa with her own plastic container of rice and beans. "You're new, right?" she asked. Clarissa smiled. "Yeah, Carla." "I'm Maribel. Just started last month. You doing okay?" Clarissa nodded, trying to figure the place out. Maribel looked around and lowered her voice. "Takes time. Just don't let them scare you. They act big, but most of them couldn't sell water in the desert." Clarissa laughed quietly. Noted. But just as she began to feel a flicker of connection, a moment happened in the showroom that shifted everything, the kind of thing you can't unsee. The flicker of connection Clarissa felt with Maribel vanished the moment she stepped back into the showroom. A young couple was standing near the silver Jeep Renegade by the window. First-time buyers, mid-20s, probably. The woman wore scrubs, still in her work shoes. The guy had an oil-stained hoodie, looking nervous but curious. They didn't look like they had much to spend. Clarissa watched from a distance as they lingered near the price sticker, hesitating. No one approached them for nearly 5 minutes, until a tall, sharp-tongued salesperson named Bryce finally strolled over. His smile was tight, practiced. Clarissa had already seen how Bryce worked. Always quick to charm, quicker to pressure. He opened strong, full of compliments. Told them they had great timing, great taste. Promised them this was the last model of the year. "A steal," he said, voice silky. Clarissa listened closely as Bryce began upselling. Features they didn't ask for, monthly payments instead of the full price, avoiding details about interest rates. By the time the couple walked off to think it over, the guy looked pale. Bryce walked back toward the break area, passing Clarissa. He didn't know she was watching. He slapped another sales rep on the arm and laughed. "Told you I'd bait him. Just gotta look him in the eye and sell the dream." Clarissa jotted that down. Bait. Sell the dream. She sat back down at her rickety desk, but her attention was elsewhere. She was listening to everything. Near the printer station, two senior employees were griping about a technician who'd missed work after surgery. Dude's milking it. Took 2 weeks for a hernia? He moves like he's underwater. Should have let him go last year. In the service bay, Clarissa overheard another conversation. A manager snapped at a female tech for taking too long on a tire rotation. If you can't keep pace, go back to working drive-through. Back in the showroom, Trevor had just finished training a new hire. Clarissa watched as he bragged about using fear to motivate. Don't coddle them. Dangle the job over their head till they beg to keep it. The dealership had become something she hadn't meant to build. Competitive, sure. But this wasn't just about performance. It was personal. Mean-spirited. Defensive. Cruel. The culture had taken a turn while she was busy building the brand. Clarissa stepped outside for air. She stood by the row of trade-ins, breathing slowly, trying to center herself. The Oklahoma wind kicked up dust, rattling the edge of a banner that read, "Everyone drives." It was a lie. Not everyone drove. Some were driven over. A few minutes later, Curtis joined her outside. "Needed a break?" he asked, careful not to look too casual. She nodded. "Yeah, just observing a lot." He leaned against the metal railing. "This place changes you. Not fast, but it does." "You okay, Curtis?" He paused, hands in his pockets. "Trying to be. I got this job 'cause I want to help my mom out. She's sick. I was hoping to get stable. You know?" Clarissa's chest tightened. "I'm sorry, that's a lot to carry." "Yeah." He offered a faint smile. "Don't tell anyone. They'll eat it up and spit it back." Clarissa wanted to tell him who she was. Wanted to tell him help was on the way, but it wasn't time yet. Not until she understood how deep the rot went. They walked back inside in silence. Later that afternoon, while scanning invoices left on her desk by accident, Clarissa noticed a pattern. Some deals pushed through the system at the end of the month with inflated accessory fees. She flagged them in her head, her heart racing. These weren't just bad attitudes. This was bending rules. Maybe even breaking them. But before she could look closer, the front door chimed, and a single mother with 2 small kids stepped in, looking lost, and everything changed. Clarissa spotted her instantly. The woman couldn't have been more than 30. Worn jacket, faded jeans, one hand clutching a purse, the other guiding a 5-year-old with Velcro sneakers. A toddler on her hip kept trying to reach for a keychain hanging from her bag. She looked tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. They paused near the entry, eyes darting between the sales desks and the cars displayed inside. Clarissa waited to see who would help her. No one moved. She glanced toward Trevor. He saw the woman, looked her up and down, then looked away. Same with Bryce. Same with the guy at the finance counter. They all saw her, and just let her stand there. Clarissa stood too, but before she could do anything, a woman from service strolled by and whispered, "If she's not approved already, they'll treat her like furniture." Eventually, Bryce got up, slowly, like it pained him to do so, and swaggered over. "Hi there," he said with forced cheer. "Looking for a vehicle today?" The mother nodded. "Something safe, reliable, used if possible." "What's your budget?" he asked. "Hopefully under $12,000, he whistled. "That's a tight one." She smiled nervously. "I can put $1,000 down, and I work full-time now, CNA. Clarissa couldn't hear the rest, but she didn't need to. The way Bryce tilted his head, then walked her toward the back lot. That was all she needed to see. They were heading toward a 2017 crossover Clarissa knew had transmission issues. She remembered it being flagged during the last service audit. She quietly followed. "Great family car," Bryce said as they walked around the scuffed-up vehicle. "Third row. Power, everything. Just above your budget, but with a little stretch, we might swing it." She could tell the woman was hesitant. Her eyes kept darting to her kids. The toddler was trying to open the back door. "You'd have a low monthly payment," Bryce continued. "We can even throw in a protection plan." Clarissa stepped closer. "Excuse me," she said gently, interrupting. "I was just reviewing some of the files. This one's due for some maintenance. Maybe check out the 2015 Accord in the second row? Clean history? Lower mileage. Bryce blinked. I've got this, Carla. Clarissa didn't back down. It's her first car purchase. She deserves something honest. The woman looked between them, unsure who to trust. Bryce flashed a smile. Like I said, I've got this. Why don't you go review your packet, Carla? Clarissa held his gaze for a beat, then stepped back. She watched the mother end up in the finance office 30 minutes later, pen in hand, 2 kids sharing a granola bar at her feet. Bryce walked out with a high five from Trevor. Another one down, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Curtis passed by and whispered, That car's garbage. Clarissa nodded. I know. That night, sitting alone in her motel room just a few blocks away, Clarissa thought about the kids. The worn tires. The lease Bryce pushed when a used sale would have saved her money long term. She thought about how they laughed after she signed. That's when it stopped being an undercover visit. It became something else. This wasn't just poor management. It was a failure of everything she thought her brand stood for. Fair pricing, honest work, real respect. She stared at the ceiling for a long time before falling asleep. The name on her ID badge, Carla, facing up from the table. But the next day, something cracked in public, and it wasn't quiet. Humiliation served hot with witnesses. It started with lunch. Every Friday, the sales team ordered from a local barbecue spot down the road. Big spread, ribs, mac and cheese, fried okra. The kind of food that made people loosen their belts and lower their filters. Clarissa sat at the end of the long break room table, picking at coleslaw. Curtis sat nearby, headphones in, trying to keep his head down. Maribel had left early. Family emergency. The room buzzed with chatter. Then Bryce strolled in with Trevor, both carrying styrofoam plates piled high. Bryce had that swagger again. The kind people confuse with confidence, but was really just unchecked ego. He took a seat directly across from Clarissa. Hey, Carla, he said through a mouthful of cornbread. You make any sales yet? Clarissa gave a faint smile. Still learning. Better hurry, Trevor chimed in. Boss don't like slow starters. Yeah, Bryce added, laughing. Place chews up dead weight pretty fast. No offense. He turned to the table. Y'all ever notice how Carla's always watching but never talking? Like a sad mall cop who got lost in a dealership? Some chuckled. She's got that substitute lunch lady vibe, Trevor said. Probably writes Yelp reviews when the fries are cold. More laughter. Curtis looked up, his expression tight. Seriously though, Bryce said, leaning in. Where'd they find you? Craigslist? Clarissa met his eyes and held them for a beat too long. I came in through the front door. Just like you. The room went quiet for a second. Then Trevor barked out a laugh. Feisty. Bryce shook his head and muttered, We'll see how long that lasts. Curtis stood up. Y'all done? The room turned to him. You act like being mean is some kind of flex, he said, voice steadier than usual. She's done nothing but show up. Maybe try that instead of playing high school. Trevor scoffed. Relax, kid. I am relaxed, Curtis replied. Y'all are the ones sweating strangers. He grabbed his tray and left. Clarissa felt something shift in that moment. Not a full turn of the tide, but a ripple. Someone had stood up. Not for her exactly, but against them. Later that day, she caught up with Curtis outside. You didn't have to do that, she said. Yeah, well, he shrugged. Someone needed to. You okay? He hesitated. I get through it. Just never thought this job would feel like high school with paychecks. Clarissa chuckled. That's not far off. He smiled. They think they own this place. Like they built it. She looked at the building behind them. Glass, steel, a giant sign that bore her last name. They didn't, she said softly. Back inside, Bryce and Trevor were back at their desks, still cracking jokes like nothing had happened. But Clarissa saw something different now. Not just bad employees. Rot. The kind that spreads when leaders stop showing up. When people forget that leadership isn't a title, it's a tone. That night, Clarissa pulled out her laptop in the motel room and started making a list. Not of who to fire, not yet, but who still had something worth protecting. Curtis, Maribel. A soft-spoken finance assistant named Tina, who apologized when she overcharged a customer by mistake and stayed an extra hour to fix it. There were good people here, just buried under noise. But the weekend brought something worse, something that made Clarissa question how much damage had already been done. Saturday brought a light drizzle, just enough to give the pavement that slick sheen that made everything feel quieter, heavier. Clarissa walked into the dealership around 8:45 a.m., earlier than most, hoping for a moment of calm, but calm wasn't in the cards. She was barely through the door when she heard it. Raised voices coming from the back office. Through the glass, Chad Landry, the general manager, was pacing like a man who'd lost something. His face flushed red as he slammed a folder onto his desk. Inside the office was Marvin, the oldest technician in the building. 63 years old, known for never calling out, never showing up late, never making excuses. He had worked for Boone Drive Motors longer than anyone else at that location. "You're down another 2 hours this week," Chad barked. "Work faster or go home early. Your numbers don't justify the payroll." Marvin stood still, shoulders tense. "I had to wait for parts. Twice. Not on me." "You're not fast enough anymore," Chad snapped. "Time doesn't care how long you've been here." Clarissa clenched her teeth. The door opened and Marvin walked out, face tight with frustration, wrench in hand. He didn't say a word as he brushed past her. Clarissa stepped into the office before Chad could shut the door. "Problem?" she asked, keeping her voice flat. Chad looked up, surprised. "What are you doing back here?" "Just curious. That guy's been loyal for over a decade. You really think cutting his hours is the move?" Chad narrowed his eyes. "Look, Carla, you're not management. You're here for sales. Stay in your lane." She didn't flinch. "Sometimes the lane's broken." He didn't respond, just turned back to his monitor. Clarissa left the office and walked the lot, pacing between cars. It was starting to feel suffocating. She wasn't just observing anymore. She was watching her name being dragged through the dirt, one broken promise at a time. When she got back inside, Trevor was holding court again, this time talking loudly about how he bent a customer into upgrading to a trim they clearly couldn't afford. Guy walked in for a Civic, walked out with a Ram, said he'd never driven a truck before, he said, laughing. "Probably won't make his second payment." The laughter that followed was loud, proud. Curtis heard it. Clarissa saw the way he stiffened at his desk. She walked over. "Hey, you okay?" "I'm done," he said quietly. "I've got one more shift and I'm out." "Why?" "Because this isn't who I am. And if I stay, it will be." That hit her harder than she expected. "You're not the problem, Curtis. Doesn't matter," he replied. "The problem's bigger than me." He walked out to take a call, and Clarissa sat down at his desk, staring at the walls, the banners, the mugs that said "Hustle Harder." Everything looked polished on the outside, but inside, rotten. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. Her real phone. A text from her assistant. "Aisha, investor brunch moved to Wednesday. Also, Tulsa numbers are up again. You still going incognito?" Clarissa stared at the message for a long time. The numbers were up. Sales looked good on paper. The dealership was performing, but what was the cost? That evening, she went back to her motel room and opened a folder she'd kept hidden in her suitcase. Inside were photos, team photos from other dealerships, employee of the month letters, handwritten thank you notes from customers who'd felt taken care of. Reminders of what Boone Drive Motors had once meant to people. She pulled out a clean sheet of paper and started writing. Monday, 8 o'clock a.m., all staff meeting, mandatory, conference room. She signed it. Clarissa Boone, CEO. But Sunday night didn't pass quietly. Someone found out Carla wasn't who she said she was, and word started to spread. Monday morning hit like thunder. It was still dark when Clarissa arrived, wearing what they'd never seen her in before. A tailored navy suit, polished heels, and the poise of someone who knew exactly where she stood. The wig was gone. So were the glasses. In their place, clarity. By 7:50, people were drifting in, some bleary-eyed, others curious. No one knew what the meeting was for, but there was tension, thick and slow, like the air before a storm. Bryce strolled in with a smirk, tossing his keys onto the conference table. "Another training update?" he joked. Maybe Carla's finally selling something. Clarissa stood near the whiteboard, holding a clipboard. She didn't look up at first. Just let them come in. Let them settle. Let them laugh. Trevor walked in, saw her, paused mid-step. Bryce glanced at him. What? That's her. Her who? Trevor leaned in. That's Clarissa Boone. The smirk melted off Bryce's face. Wait. What? Clarissa looked up. Her voice was calm, steady. Morning. For those of you who don't know me, or thought you did, my name is Clarissa Boone. I'm the CEO of Boone Drive Motors. I've spent the past 5 days here. As Carla, you could have heard a pin drop. Chad Landry walked in last. He stopped in the doorway like he'd hit a wall. She turned to him. Thanks for joining us, Chad. He cleared his throat. Of course. Clarissa stepped forward. I came here because I'd been hearing things, not from HR, not from upper management, from people who care about what this company was supposed to be, what I wanted it to be. She let that hang. I came in as someone with no status, no title, no protection, and what I saw, she shook her head. It was worse than I feared. Eyes dropped. Some shifted in their seats. Curtis looked straight at her. She continued. I saw customers lied to. I saw a technician shamed for needing recovery time. I saw a loyal worker being pushed out because he wasn't 25 anymore. I saw co-workers mocked for their clothes, their age, their voice. And I saw you, some of you, laughing like it was a game. Bryce opened his mouth, but she raised a hand. Don't. She walked to the board and wrote one word in all caps. Trust. This isn't about performance metrics, it's about trust. You sold a car with a known defect to a single mom just trying to keep her kids safe. You mocked someone for showing up early and working late. You called someone deadweight while offering nothing yourselves. Trevor stood. Look, we didn't know who you were. Exactly, she said, cutting him off. You treated someone you thought had no power like trash. And that's the problem. She let the silence build again. Some of you won't be here tomorrow, she said, eyes sweeping across the room. But for those who stay, know this. The culture is changing. Starting now. Curtis glanced over at Maribel, who had just slipped in, wide-eyed. He mouthed the word wow. Clarissa continued. If you're here to build something, to treat people with basic respect, to be proud of your name on that badge, you've got a place. But if you're here to play king of the hill, to bully your way through the day, you're done. Chad finally spoke. You went behind our backs. That's not leadership. Clarissa turned to him. No. Leadership is showing up when no one expects you to. Leadership is listening before speaking. Leadership is not letting a brand get poisoned from the inside. He opened his mouth again, but she was already walking toward the door. I'll be in my office. If anyone wants to talk, really talk, you know where I am. But just when it seemed like the storm had passed, the fallout began. Quiet firings, loud departures, and a dealership trying to find its way back. By Tuesday morning, the energy inside the dealership had shifted completely. The loudest voices were gone, literally. Chad Landry's office sat empty, door ajar, nameplate already removed. His resignation had come swiftly. Voluntary on paper, but Clarissa knew better. She had made it clear during their private conversation the day before. Step down or face termination with cause. Bryce didn't even make it that far. He showed up late that morning, still smirking, still pretending nothing had changed. But when security met him at the front with an envelope and escorted him to his desk, that smirk vanished. Trevor walked out by noon. He didn't say a word, just handed in his badge, left his desk a mess, and peeled out of the lot like he was running from something. Some of the others stayed silent, heads low, unsure what came next. But Curtis stayed. And not only that, he showed up early. Clarissa was in the conference room reviewing training material when he walked in holding 2 coffees. Figured you might need the good kind today, he said, offering her one. She smiled, genuinely. Thanks. Curtis sat across from her. So, what now? We rebuild, she said. From the inside out. You really meant what you said? Every word, Clarissa met with every single remaining employee that day. One-on-ones, no suits, no clipboards, just conversation. She learned a lot. About whispered complaints that never made it to corporate, about ideas that were shot down before they could breathe, about quiet acts of kindness that had gone unseen. She offered Maribel a promotion to customer experience coordinator. The girl nearly cried. She sat with Tina from finance and mapped out a new transparency system for all sales paperwork. And Curtis? She offered him a leadership track. "I'm not sure I'm ready," he said, voice cautious. "You weren't ready to stand up for someone in the break room either. But you did." He looked down, then back up. "Okay, I'll try." That afternoon, a few customers trickled in. The mood on the floor was different. Quieter, but not tense, focused. 2 reps helped an elderly couple compare used sedans without upselling nonsense. Maribel offered them coffee and answered every question without a script. At 4:15, a familiar face walked through the door. It was the single mom from earlier in the week. The one Bryce had pushed into that questionable lease. Clarissa had personally reviewed the deal and had it voided. Now she was back, with her kids again, and a cautious look in her eyes. Clarissa walked over to greet her. "I got your message," the woman said. "Wasn't sure it was real." "It was," Clarissa said. "You were taken advantage of. That's on us, but I'd like to make it right." They sat down together. No pressure, no pitch. And by the time the woman left, she had a better car. Older, sure, but in far better condition and more affordable. She smiled, shaking Clarissa's hand. "You didn't have to do that." "I did," Clarissa said. "It's my name on the sign." Word spread, slowly, not just in the dealership, but among customers. People came in saying things like, "I heard you all are turning things around," or, "My cousin told me what you did for her friend." Not everyone stayed. Some employees left in the following weeks. That was okay. Culture doesn't shift in a day. It's not about perfection. It's about direction. Clarissa stayed an extra month in Tulsa. Not undercover. Not watching from the shadows, but present. Walking the lot. Talking to people. Listening more than she spoke, and it made all the difference. But before Clarissa packed her bags for the last time, she sat down to record something she wanted every manager in her company to see. Clarissa sat in the dealership office, the same one where Chad used to kick back and scroll through his phone, door always half shut. Now, it was bright, open. The blinds were up. Sunlight poured across the desk. A camera was set up in front of her. Nothing fancy, just her, a chair, and her thoughts. She looked into the lens, took a breath, and hit record. "I'm Clarissa Boone, CEO of Boone Drive Motors, and if you're watching this, you're probably a manager, a team lead, or someone who's been trusted to represent our name. I want to tell you a story." She paused. "Last month, I spent 5 days undercover at our Tulsa dealership. I pretended to be a job applicant, Carla Benson. I wore secondhand clothes, took a fake resume, and kept my mouth shut. Not because I wanted to play a trick, but because I needed to understand what we'd become." Her voice didn't waver. She wasn't reading a script. "I was insulted on day 1. Mocked. Ignored. I watched employees lie to customers, tear down co-workers, and act like kindness was weakness. I saw a culture I didn't recognize." She leaned forward slightly, "But I also saw something else. I saw a young man who stood up for someone he didn't even know. I saw a receptionist quietly making people feel welcome even when no one else did. I saw the flickers of something we've forgotten how to value, respect." Clarissa looked away for a moment, then back. "I built this company with my bare hands. I started with one used car lot in Kansas City and a folding table. I didn't build it to become the biggest. I built it to become the best, the most trusted. Somewhere along the way, we started chasing numbers more than people. That's on me." She straightened her shoulders. "But here's the truth. Titles don't define leadership. Behavior does. You don't have to be a manager to lead. You just have to show up. For the people around you, say hello, tell the truth, hold the line." She smiled gently. "If you're watching this and you feel nervous, it's probably for a reason. Maybe you've let some things slide. Maybe you've picked up bad habits. That's okay. You can fix it. Then, her tone shifted. But if you think the only way to rise is to push others down, this company will leave you behind. We're not doing that anymore. She reached over and turned off the camera. Later that afternoon, she shared the video with every location across the company. Every manager was required to watch it. Some rolled their eyes, others watched twice. A few called her directly to apologize for things they'd let slide, for behaviors they'd mimicked. Curtis watched the video in the break room. When it ended, he just sat there for a minute, staring at the blank screen. Then he got up, walked to the showroom, and offered to help a new hire find their footing. That's how change begins. Small, quiet, consistent. When Clarissa finally packed her suitcase and stepped out of the Tulsa dealership for the last time, the parking lot looked different. Not because the cars had changed, but because the people inside had. A young customer held the door open for a technician. Maribel was walking a nervous first-time buyer through the process with calm assurance. Curtis was leading a morning huddle, reminding the team what kind of experience they wanted to create. Clarissa smiled to herself. She had come to expose the worst. She left having rediscovered the best. If this story reminded you of how important it is to lead with integrity, even when no one's watching, subscribe to our channel for more stories that matter. And if you've ever seen the truth from behind the mask, share your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear it.